So I was out at a listing of mine on Lake Sarah. It's not on the market yet. We're going to come on the market at some point. Beautiful home. It's like $2 million house.
Yep.
And I asked the guy when he showed up, I'm like, hey, I want to dive into Lake Sarah. He's like, seriously? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yes! My day just got excited. I'm here with Jay, AGNT Media. Biggest thing for us on the Pomerleau team is good photos, right? When it comes to buying and selling real estate, buyers no longer drive around looking for homes for sale signs. They look online.
Yep.
And if they click picture, I like this, they call their agent and they want to go see it. If the pictures suck, we don't get the views, right? So I was fascinated today with all like the tech and everything that you guys do. But why don't you share a little bit about AGNT Media and kind of what you're all about?
Yeah, so I guess at a high level, we're a full-service real estate media company. That means all things photos, videos, floor plans, 3D tours, drone, anything that allows you to capture a property and display it digitally on the internet. And so that's kind of what we do at a high level. Beyond that, we've really tried to take a more advanced approach to it. We kind of figured out early on that like taking a good photo was just the minimum threshold in this business. And everyone's after a good photo, but they're also after ways to be, a more efficient, effective real estate agent and offer as much value as possible to their buyers and sellers, and in our case, mostly sellers. But so we went deep in our tech backing and our development, in our systems, and how we hire and train our staff. We kind of just really tried to do everything that everyone else wasn't doing, at least in our market. And so, yeah, now we're kind of coming up on 3 years into that game, and we've realized that we're definitely making up some ground and filling a hole.
So you're telling me there's a difference between having you or someone from your staff go out there and me going out there with my iPhone?
Yeah, big difference.
There's a big difference there.
Big difference.
Well, my iPhone costs $1,200.
Yeah, and you're going up against a $20,000 kit with a professional.
Okay, well, why don't you? Because you shared this with me. I thought it was really cool. Tell me the difference. What does $20,000 worth of equipment get you when you go to a $300,000, $500,000, or a $5 million house?
Yep. Yeah, so first of all, it's our ability to be full coverage, right? You don't want to have to hire 3 different vendors, one to do photo, one to do video, one to come measure the house. That's a pain in the butt. So
drone.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep.
So it kind of starts with just like the sheer quantity of equipment, I guess, is the starting point. But again, that's where it's like good photos minimum threshold. Saving the agent the hour of hassle and emails and coordination to do it 3 times over is like where we start to make up some ground. As far as like the technological advancements, when you're shooting, a single frame iPhone photo, if you've ever taken a photo indoors, you're kind of tapping back and forth between the windows and like the foreground, because in one, the windows are super light and blown out. And then if you click the windows, the foreground gets super dark. Yep. And so having a professional camera, and even some like modern DSLR cameras still do that on like the lower entry level side of things. So to get a camera with like big megapixel, big sensor size, and the ability to shoot what we call bracketed photos, so multiple photos at different exposures. And then on the editing side, we actually blend those. So we'll set up the tripod, we'll push the button, and it'll take 3 photos. One's gonna be kind of really dark in the foreground, but you'll be able to see out the windows really well. One's somewhere in between. One, the foreground's really well lit and the windows are blown out.
Yeah.
And so in the post-editing process, we can combine all of those and basically take the best pieces of each one. And the photos are raw, so every pixel is adjustable and manipulable, and it allows you to use a lot of like the modern AI tools and stuff to cut pieces out and replace things, and not just like apply filters to it. Like one of the funniest things I get is people will ask, like, can you apply a different filter to this or something like that? And it's like, no, that's not how it works at all. But that's, I don't blame anyone for not knowing. That's the general conception.
I didn't know
like
till this morning, our conversation last week. I didn't know this stuff. There was how many, 80,000 pixels or something like in a photo, like.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so the reason we hire you guys is for a lot of things, right? And the reason you're doing 4,000 shoots a year is because you know what you're doing, right? But also editing is such a big part of this. So you guys got a whole team of how many people?
Yeah, so we have, 12 full-time W-2 employees here locally, and
Yep.
then we have a team of 15 that have been kind of a cool piece of our business.
15 people.
In Vietnam.
Only job is to edit the photos to make sure they look the absolute best when we go put it on the market.
Yep. And they're in Vietnam for a couple of reasons, but one of the major ones is they're on the other side of the clock. So one of the big things we offer is that next morning or next day delivery. And you'd never be able to do it, right? If you shot all day, you went home at 5 o'clock, you came in the next day, edited all the photos, you probably won't start to get them till the second or third day. And the reality in real estate just moves so fast, and stuff, needs to go on the market yesterday.
Right.
And so
and absolutely. But also, I love, because we're a team, I love the idea of having a team of specialized people in their role to what they're good at. Right? That's huge. And I think that's why we've the Pomerleau team has been so successful, is we divide and conquer.
Yep.
Right? It's the same thing. If you had to go home at night and spend 20 minutes editing every single photo that you took all day, you'd never sleep.
Right.
And then you'd be like, oh, I have to go up the next day. Like,
exactly.
it's never going to work good.
And you'd get burnt out. And there are teams, especially small teams, which, to their credit, they're working hard, but they try to shoot everything and edit everything themselves. One, they get burnt out because it's just too much. Two, they can't work with any teams of significant scale because they just don't have enough hours in the day to shoot and edit and manage the client communications and all of that of it all. And so it's really a slippery game. There's a lot of one-man bands that, can shoot a house a day. And great for them. I'm super pro entrepreneurship. If you get to wake up and do your own thing, I think you're winning. But it's really hard to do that at scale. And that is the reality of what the majority of high volume and big teams and the money-making teams that really value their media need. And it's frankly just really hard to do. So that's why there's really only a couple that have accomplished it.
Yeah. And we had a long-term relationship with a few different ones. We've tried a lot of different ones. And you spoke about it, but your tech behind the scenes is awesome.
Yeah.
It helps us as agents do a better job for our clients. And I mean, when we go to our clients, there's so many things that we can showcase that we do differently than other real estate agents that it blows their mind. Right, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, the tech was a big piece that is sort of just some sheer luck. I won't get into my background super in-depthly because it's been quite the journey, but I'm a big entrepreneurship guy. I went to school for entrepreneurship, and I was really big in tech. And so the first handful of years of my career, I wanted to be a Silicon Valley tech guy. And so kind of that's where I started. That's where my mind was.
You would have made and lost about $100 million by now.
Yeah, right.
In Silicon Valley.
Yep.
And you might be ahead, you might be behind right now. I don't know.
And so that's where it all started. I had no photography experience. I didn't, have a camera in my hand since I was 5 years old, like a lot of my photographers did. And so, yeah, I kind of got into this game by accident. And then once I figured out, like I said, that minimum barrier of how to take a halfway decent photo, I was like, well, what about all this other stuff that I like to do? No one's doing that. And that is kind of the simplistic explanation of how this all started to kind of come to be.
Well, and you spoke too about the equipment too, but I was like, you were showing me the new GoPro that came out 5 days ago that you have right away, right? And you have these lenses that look like they're going to shoot the moon. I mean, it's just really cool.
Yeah.
So when we, you had kind of alluded to it, and I'm really kind of curious what you said, or what your answer is going to be. So when you take a shoot, or if somebody goes to Zillow or Realtor.com or Homes.com and they start looking at photos, right? Or they get the photos from us on North Star MLS. Who owns the photos?
Yeah, so the vast majority of time in the residential world, the company or person who shot them retains the ownership.
Okay.
And so if you hire us to shoot a photo, what that essentially means is reserve the right to sell or distribute that photo, and we grant usage for you to obviously use those photos to market and sell your home and yourself, and basically anything you'd ever really
want to do with
use
the photo
them for.
Yep.
Basically, the only thing it doesn't do is let you sell the photos, and really it's not about protecting ourselves from the agents who might sell their listing photos for a couple $100 every now and again. It's to protect us from the big Zillows and Trulias and Realtor.coms, from them owning the photos. So that's one of our big assets. That's where companies like ours have a lot of data value. and where we are able to like hold our own against, a multi-billion-dollar company like a Zillow.
Yeah, because you own the rights to the photo.
Yeah, and so basically what happens in simplistic form is we give you the right to put them on the MLS. Zillow syndicates everything over from the MLS, and basically is a public viewing point, right? They don't
content website.
They don't own anything that's on there, right? They're not directly representing the listings. They don't own the photos. They're just a lead gen, a landing spot for
100%.
eyes, which they're really good at. But if we didn't own those photos, Zillow would have so much data, and companies like mine would never be able to be acquired or anything like that. And so that's why we hold our data. And some companies just do it to do it. I'm actually trying to figure out ways of how we better utilize that data and how we can come up with new things and to be more, take a foray into a tech company as well as a media company.
So what do you think is going to happen with Zillow and like anything change, or do you think it's all going to stay pretty much the same? Status quo?
Yeah, I mean, as far as stuff this year that's happened with like commissions and anything like that, I think it, at the end of the day, is not going to change a lot. I think, it was a lot of headlines and it was scary change. I think the vast majority of sellers are still going to offer buy-side commission. I don't think you're going to see any like earth-shattering effects, and therefore I don't think there's going to be any opportunities for many opportunities for a Zillow or someone to come in and like really do anything super disruptive there. There's already been flat fee brokerages. There's already been all these things where if you are just trying to do this as cheap as possible, the options have already existed for you to do so.
Funny, a little funny. So I was in New York in May, and I was with, do you watch, Ryan Serhant and $1 Million Listing? So I was talking to Ryan, and it was so like interesting that so Zillow called him, and they were panicking. They're like, we are in trouble right now. We need someone to tell us how to fix this because agents don't like Zillow.
No.
Right? And he's like, so if you ever see me online endorsing Zillow, they wrote a big check. So right now, nothing. But I will say this, is that we've worked with Zillow for years, and for a couple different reasons. One is we like to get the introductions to clientele. But ever since this NAR settlement and the people that are just casually looking, they're not there anymore. So the number of introductions have drastically gone down, and we've had more people reach out directly to us instead of going the roundabout way through like a Zillow or Realtor.com.
Right.
So I'm curious if that's going to continue. And they're going to really be freaking out.
And when the miscellaneous deals come up that don't directly offer buy-side commission, I think you're going to see a lot more dual agency and people just trying to go direct to the listing agent. And so I think there'll be an increase in cases like that, but I don't think it's going to be this like industry-changing thing. But like they are doing some interesting stuff. They're a leads business, right? Like this year, Zillow acquired Follow Up Boss, which is a big lead tool. A little scary depending on how you ask. If Zillow,
a lot of my buddies that run teams use Follow Up Boss.
And they
haven't really said they were worried about it, but they own Showing Time. They own.
One interesting one that happened this year too that most people don't know about because it wasn't front page news. The back end that we use for all of our photo management and taking in orders and stuff is a specific tool for real estate media companies called Ario. And Zillow acquired that this year. They still don't own the photos, but what I think is fascinating is that as media companies, we get tipped off on what's coming to the market before the market does, right? So if you're not supposed to, right? But if you go to your local real estate photography company and say, you got anything, Minnetonka, 400,000 to 600,000, 3-bed, the photographers are going to know a couple weeks before the market knows generally.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So now Zillow has that data, which I think is going to be fascinating. So they're going to know addresses that have ordered photos, which is obviously a pretty big indicator of it coming to market. So my prediction, we'll come back to this a year from now to see if it plays out, is you could potentially start seeing, you have blue pins on Zillow for homes that are for sale, maybe yellow pins that are like likely to come to market, right? And that's because they've seen photos get ordered. And so I think they'll have more things coming to that effect that allow people, it's like likely to come to market, be notified when it comes to market, there's a bajillion more leads that they can sell. So I think you'll see some of that stuff happen, is my prediction.
Well, I love predictions. I love being bold statements and looking back later to see if we're right or wrong. That would make sense. I wonder how that would get around the MLS rules of like pre-marketing the home. But they're a big tech company. They're going to figure it out.
Yeah, and there's rules that I've dabbled with the MLS on this kind of stuff. So it basically, where the MLS draws the line, and they've told me this directly, is let's say I took photos of a home and I want to share them on Instagram. That home's maybe not for sale yet.
Yep.
As long as so I guess the question is, right, like where's the line between marketing photos of a home and marketing a home? And so what they say is if I don't use verbiage that says for sale or coming soon, I don't give a listing broker or brokerage, I'm not effectively marketing the house. And so what we actually attempted to do last year, this was a little R&D project, was to have what we called like a market peak, and we would like put up pins on the map of where photos were ordered. And so like this was an early idea that we started with no detail. Basically, like it was an address and photos, and we didn't give price, broker, say it was for sale. It was kind of just like a read between the lines, you know, like here's what we shot this week type thing.
Yep.
And that technically was allowed. And so we've played in the gray areas of the rules, and I suspect if there's money to be made, Zillow will do the same.
Yep.
And
well, entrepreneurs play in the gray area until they're told not to.
Basically.
Right, that's our livelihood, and pushing the boundaries and understanding different things that the general public or other people that aren't built that way or wired that way do.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, the entrepreneurial saying is you're remembered for the rules you break. So
100%. And if you're not entrepreneuring hard enough, or you don't want to burn it down every week, you're not entrepreneuring hard enough.
Yep.
Right.
Basically. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that I think will happen from like a lead gen perspective. I've even weighed my own options like internally as like, is there a play for me here in this? Real estate is just such a deep thing, right? You have so many billions of dollars behind it that it's like sometimes you feel like, who am I to disrupt this thing if Zillow's on it?
The crazies disrupt, and the disruptors change things. So I think do it.
Right.
Don't ever change that mindset. I'm the same way. I think it's super important.
Yeah, no, I try to remind myself of that. But
yeah.
I think there'll be incremental changes, but I think so much of what available has already existed. Maybe it just has more light shined on it now, but at the end of the day, value wins.
Yep, that's good. All right, so one of the cool features of AGNT Media is the back-end system that I kind of alluded to earlier, but how does that play into Agent's social media and working with like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of them out there, YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret social media has become just like a key part of any business in the last decade.
Really?
And
you don't say. It's everywhere.
And so weirdly, there was like a resistance for real estate media companies, at least in our area, to kind of go down that road. And I always thought it was super bizarre because it was, to me, obvious. Like, you're creating this content. What are they going to do with it, right? They're going to put it on social media. And so, like, why can't we then go down that road and help them be more effective in doing so? And creating products that, like, better align with where the algorithms are at. And so, like, for example, if you try to post a horizontal video on Instagram, it will look
horizontal,
dumb, right? It'll be horizontal this big, and it'll be a bunch of dead black space above and below,
I'm
right?
with you. I'm following you.
So it's like, why are we selling horizontal videos? It's not
vertical videos.
Right. And so, like, you go to some of our competitors, they offer those videos, those horizontal videos that have always been how people did things. And it's like, well, now they're more or less irrelevant. Like, the algorithm's not built for them. They don't display properly. Like, why would anyone spend money on these? Like, to me, it's a no-brainer, but clearly to some people, it's still a problem. So, like, we went in, like, we're only going to do vertical video unless someone specifically asks or they have a specific use case, like they're big on YouTube or something like that. Otherwise,
so YouTube's more horizontal?
Yeah. Yep. And then, now they have their shorts. Everyone kind of has
shorts are vertical for sure. But otherwise, all the other platforms are vertical.
Yeah, and so, like, obviously TikTok's blown up.
Yeah.
Instagram Reels is blown up, so now its preferred way is vertical. Even LinkedIn's now dabbling into the short form vertical video platform. YouTube again, there's still a lot of people who are successful with horizontal videos on YouTube. They're kind of like the unique case to it.
Yeah.
But then obviously now they have the YouTube Shorts, which are all vertical. So like, unless you're that specific kind of unusual niche case where you're like, I'm really deep on YouTube, you really only ever want to need vertical videos as far as what you distribute. There's still use for them as, I don't know, like website headers and stuff like that. You'll make a vertical video every now and again for some sort of use case like that. But it's really like vertical, vertical, vertical. And then within that, the algorithm has preferences, and the algorithm, when you post a video, can transcribe like what is in the video, right? It's a house, it's an agent. This is an agent that so-and-so's interacted with before. Well, Sally's interacted with Joe, the real estate agent. Based on our data, Molly is just like Sally, you know, from a fact standpoint, from an age, maybe job, maybe region that they live in case. So they'll say, because Sally liked this video, we think Molly will like this video too. And so being able to capitalize on that, you know, your brand, like if everyone loves looking at houses, and really lead with that in your videos is super important for it to get any sort of traction, which thus builds your reach, builds your brand, opens you up to more leads, all of those things. And now there's agents that have built their entire business on social media and social media leads. I respect the old school, like, pick up the phone and cold call, grind it out kind of guys, but the reality is I've never cold called an agent in my life, and I've now got 1,600 of them. I guess I've maybe DM'd some agents.
Well, thank you for being here with us today. That's really impressive.
And so I guess we've DM'd some. We've done some cold outreach, but not in the form of a call. And we get so much flow in from our Instagram and what we share and post. And I know so many of our agents too. I mean, there's specific teams around here where they're like, only lead gen is social media. And so it's a huge piece. And I think it's like a massive case of neglect if you don't do it.
Gosh, you're so true.
And you don't.
So right, you're right.
And you don't have to be like amazing. So many people get stuck in the ideas of like, I can't come up with this like groundbreaking idea. You don't need it.
No.
Like,
do you know how many videos have been shot that never made it to social because they second guess themselves, they worry about it, they get in their head about it, right? And I mean, I took a giant leap into social media probably, I mean, Andy would know, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half or whatever it's been. And I'm all, you know, TikTok every day. We do Instagram, we do Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts. We kind of do it all. And actually, one of the things, keep it really simple, to be on the Pomerleau team, right? We all put all of our listings with Agent Media's app, and I can literally, anyone on the team can go in there any given time, pull the video already created. They could shoot a little thing of themselves and put it on their social media. Right. Now I know there's a lot more to it. Maybe you could show me when we're done with this, like some of the other tips and tricks. But that's like a no-brainer to me.
And you're doing good by doing the basic videos, right? Like, hey, I'm Matt Haley. Welcome to 123 Apple Street. Let me show you around.
The barrier is shooting a basic photo.
Right.
The barrier is putting it on there. But
so
there's
like,
more.
Like that's a great start. That's consistency. When people come to your Instagram page or Facebook or whatever your platform of choice is, like that is now your portfolio. And so, you know, you don't see as much website traffic anymore. You see a ton of like social media page traffic. And so treating it like that's super important. So just having a lot of examples on there is phenomenal. And then when you go to reach, now you get to play like in the bigger zones of doing really cool stuff that sort of stops the scroll, because people in a feed basis, they get used to seeing a lot of the same things. So now the question is like, how can you give them something you haven't seen before? And so that's where a lot of like the fly through videos come from, or just like a place of sheer quality, or little things where maybe it looks like a traditional home video, but we're doing those transitions from like the day to night shots. Like those are all just really cool things that grab attention and those views pop. I mean, we posted a fly through video that late last week and it's at 70,000 views. And so that's huge reach for us, huge reach for the agent.
Well, that agent could literally sell that house without even going on the market, theoretically, right? They will, but homes are bought and sold on social media.
And especially when you deal in higher price ranges, there's a lot greater likelihood that buyer is going to come from another market. They're not on the North Star MLS. I guess they would have access to Zillow, but the first time they see it would be...
I get calls, I wasn't looking, I happened to see this one home, I want to see it. And the stars align and they buy that one home. They weren't planning on moving.
No, I just did that a week ago.
Yeah.
myself.
You did that?
Yeah, I was like, I want that house, and ultimately we looked at it, and it wasn't the right house. But
that was the same thing, right? Is
Yeah.
that's becoming more and more common. I don't want to move, but if the right home showed up, I will. And I was on TikTok, and I happened to see this one home because of this kitchen that this girl was baking in, and she sold it that way.
yeah. And there's so many goofy concepts we do. I love when agents have goofy concepts and just something different. We had one where she was like pretending to do like a selfie iPhone video of her on the balcony of this house, and purposefully dropped the phone, and was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then she's like, hey, can you throw that back up here? And then it shoots up to like a drone shot, and it's like a really cool transition to the video.
Yeah.
That's just different because you're like, oh my God, she dropped her phone, and then you're like, wait, and then you're like, whoa. So there's just so many cool things, like that extra mile is how you get those views, and those views turn into followers, and those followers turn into leads.
And even as simple as I saw it on TikTok, then I realized it's for sale. I go take that address and I go put it into my third-party website, right? Whether it be Pomerleauteam.com, or you go to Zillow.com or Realtor.com, or any million of them, right? And then they're looking at the photos, and then they reach out.
Yeah.
Right?
And like I mentioned in a conversation earlier today, too many agents out there have this idea that like, I have to order photos, I have to put a sign in the ground. It's like my cost for this listing, and they go, it's commoditized, right? They just go for the cheapest thing possible, and they're not viewing it as their marketing, their brand, and their potential route to their next listing. And so that's one of the big things is, treat all the homes, like they're the $1 million home. And
so true.
Yeah, and the results will come. Does it feel a little goofy? Welcome to my $220,000 listing in Brooklyn Park. Let me show you around. Here's the brown carpet and the 60-year-old fireplace and whatever. That probably feels weird, but someone might appreciate the effort that you put into that.
Absolutely. That seller's going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
And there's a buyer for every home, right? Whether it be $5 million or a $60,000 condo,
right?
It's going to be somebody's home,
and
right? That's a big deal.
When the whole real estate industry in the last year has been basically shrouded in a value question, those are the things that make a difference. Those are the things that set you apart. Like those are the things that you can do that the agent across the street can't.
Right.
Or the reason people use their cousin's wife as their real estate agent who's sold 2 homes in her entire life is they feel like they have some like safety or value or something in them. And if you're able to lend that through your social media brand or experience or your expertise, like that's how you keep that from happening. Realistically, like I make my living on real estate agents, but there really shouldn't be 2 million of them. I mean, in Minnesota,
1.75 million real estate agents, and 50% of those agents sell between 0 and 1 home a year.
Yeah, in Minnesota last year, 800 agents did 80% of the volume.
Yep.
And I think we have in the ballpark like 22,000 or something in the greater metro area.
It's a 80-20 rule.
And so, those are the things that put you at the top of that list.
Well, even our connection to you guys, right? It puts us a leg up between the one or two onesie twosies.
Yeah.
Right? And the skill set that you guys provide. And you guys are not the cheapest.
Nope.
Right? But your value that we provide to our clients and to us, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually, I'll tell you a funny story that is sort of meaningless to you as an agent, but we figured out how small the real estate industry is in a sense, and how there's always a scorecard running, right? Like you can go pull the data from MarketView Broker or whatever and see what the volume numbers are, who the players are. They all say top producer in the Instagram bio, but like who's actually got volume?
Yeah.
And that data is all out there, and all of the 22,000 agents or whatever kind of know like who the top 20, 50, 100 agents in the state are. Yep. And they're all chasing them. Whether they'll admit it or not, they all want to be them.
They're watching.
And so we played on that super early. So when we would go get, sort of a household name agent, we would do a free billboard and we would say, it doesn't cost you a dime. We just need your permission to do it. We're going to put your face on it. And it just says, the top realtors choose AGNT Media. And there's pictures of Mark Abdel or Kelly Brown or the DeRochers or any of those guys on them.
Yep.
And effectively it says to the rest of the real estate population, like, oh man, they use AGNT Media.
Yeah.
Like, what am I missing?
Yep.
And so like that was one of the big things, and if you want to be like them, I guess I got to use Agent Media. And so we played that, what we called like FOMO marketing, really hard in our first year or two. Because the reality of the real estate industry, and no disrespect, there's a ton of egos.
Oh yeah.
There's everyone.
Not around here though.
Everyone, wants to be the celebrity real estate agent, and we
have our own TV show and
big Instagram following.
Of course, right.
So we played into that really hard for our first year.
That's really smart though.
It was one of the big keys on how we went from like 0 to 7 figures in 14 months.
Yeah. Now, granted, that's not how we got connected.
Right.
But I think you just like reached out. It might have been a cold reach out, to be honest with you.
I think it was actually.
So I might be one of your cold reach outs. But.
Winter is the time to sell. Everyone gets slow, and it's when agents reevaluate their businesses and come up with plans and priorities for the upcoming year.
Yep.
And it's also when we're the slowest, so we have time to do it.
So when agents make moves, they like change brokerages or switch to a team, or they absolutely.
And
it's time of change.
Transparently, on a P&L basis, we don't make money in the winter. From November to March or so, we're lucky if we don't lose
money.
a good amount of money in those months. But that is like where all the hard work is done. Like what you do in those months is what your next year is going to look like.
Yep.
And so that's probably where you heard from us, because we have all the data. Like we're all MAR members. I'm an MLS member. Like I can go pull all the data. I can
on purpose. That makes sense.
go see exactly who did what volume numbers, who the top 200 agents were, reach out to all of the ones that we don't work with. It's very intentional on our part. So that's one of the tricks of the trade. If you're
smart.
starting out, like
that's smart.
That's how we did it.
Awesome. So, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, is there anything that you found for mindsets? Like how you grew this company fast, great ideas. So talk me through your mindset. Where was it over the last few years?
Yeah.
How many times did you want to quit? Let's be real.
Yeah. No, there was a lot. I always glance over the fact we went from 0 to $1 million in 14 months. Well, in those 14 months was, blood, sweat, and tears. And so this kind of gets back into my starting story, but I was coming off a failed startup. I had a year or two of, I guess a year and a half, kind of just taking oddball jobs and whatnot, whatever I could do to pay the bills. I just had a baby. I started shooting like late 2021 for a couple agents. I remember in December of 2021, I made $581. And going into winter, kind of no end in sight to that for the next few months. And I always think kind of back, like that is where most would have quit. And for some reason, I didn't. And I think it was just true entrepreneurs. I've got a comment that some people might not like here in a minute, but
we like bold statements.
True entrepreneurs like find a way to win and win at all cost. There's a lot of people, entrepreneurship is kind of a glamorous term, right? There's a lot of people that like to call themselves entrepreneurs, and it's actually a pet peeve of mine. Like I really believe as an entrepreneur, you have to create something. Like you have to do more. Here's my bold comment. I don't think holding a real estate license and completing your 90 hours makes you an entrepreneur. I think it makes you an independent contractor. Now you have to go do something with it. And like the will to create that is what makes you an entrepreneur. And the good real estate agents, the successful real estate agents absolutely are entrepreneurs. They've been able to carve out that niche for themselves, create things, create opportunities, create systems and ways of doing things.
Absolutely.
But
they also have the ability to focus, realign, and stay the course.
Yeah.
And doing consistent mundane tasks, competitive, over a long period of time to breed the results.
And you have to have a total belief, pick your word, arrogance, cockiness, confidence in yourself, because not a lot of people,
not knowing any better.
Right. Not a lot of people are going to give you that early on.
No.
I know for me, I think now we're in a lot better place, but when I started doing this, like my wife was supportive, but like my in-laws, right, were like, you're taking pictures of houses, like that's that's the plan. I was like,
how are you going to support my daughter?
Exactly, and now the baby, right?
And the baby taking pictures.
Right. Yeah. Like that was the perception. There was spacecrafting, was the king in the industry that for 15 years was never disrupted. I heard so many times like it can't be done. Like, are you sure? And there was just a blind faith in there for the first year probably that I thought. Maybe I'm young, dumb, and naive, but I thought I could do it.
Yep.
And like that was the mindset that, you know, is, in my opinion, like the only way you can win.
I think it's just, it's not dumb luck, but for me, I have a very high bandwidth. And so no matter how bad a day I have, the next day I'm good. I get to start at 100% again.
Yep.
I don't let what happened yesterday carry on. So I think it's just naivete, to be honest with you, how I just keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
No matter what happened, no matter who's ahead of me, who's behind me, doesn't matter.
Yeah. And
right.
Even now, you know, you could call us like successful at this point, if you were to use that word. When they say more money, more problems, like that's a very, very real statement. Like just because you've gotten to 7 figures or you're a few years deep into your business and you're, you know, working for yourself and are a successful entrepreneur, the highs are high and the lows are low, man. Like that $581 I made in December is not comparable to the, you know, $18,000 tax problem I just had.
Right.
And everything that goes into it, and the payroll that's more than a car, you know, a nice car every month. And
yep.
You kind of wake up or even go into the year, and I kind of tell myself, like, I have to make probably $2 million this year as a company.
Yep.
To keep all of this.
Just to keep it. Just to keep it.
If that isn't a bar and pressure, like, I don't know what is.
Yep.
It's, in my opinion, staying, I don't want to call ourselves at the top, but like staying at the top is harder and more grueling than the climb. I find the climb exciting, right? You got nothing 100%. To lose, it's upside.
There was a quote, a bunch of billionaires were all sat down, and some variation they asked the question is, you know, like, if you could look back and, you know, what would you do differently, or, you know, what does it feel like to reach the top, and blah, blah, blah. And they all said some variation of, you know, it was about the climb. Mm-hmm. You know, once you get to the top, there's nothing up there.
Right.
You know, it's boring.
Yeah.
It's a cool view, and now you're like, well, bleh.
Right.
Right.
And the general perception, you have your support circle, obviously, but
yep.
the greater public, you know, must be nice. Like that's the perception of being like a successful entrepreneur, unfortunately, so much nowadays. And I'm stealing this quote from someone else, but I always say it's like a duck. They see you cruising along and they don't see you fighting like hell underneath.
Underneath, yep.
And yeah, I mean, that's the reality of it, no matter whether you're starting or you're years into it. If you're trying to push the limits and trying to disrupt, it's chaotic, stressful, highs and lows. But maybe I'm just a glutton for the thrill of it all. Yeah. Yeah,
no, it makes sense. I think I feel the same way. It's interesting if someone said, "Hey, Matt, do you feel successful?" Or I said, "Jay, do you feel successful?" I think we're very, very self-critical of ourselves too. Like, I don't think at any level I could be like, "Yes, I made it." Right? There's always another bar. Mm-hmm. There's always another finish line. And at this point, it's more like, who can I take with me, right? Or how many people can I help? Whether it be consumers, other agents. And for you, it might be more photographers or whatever it is. Right.
And when you manage, like, there's always fires, right? It's sort of just like, what fires do I feel like addressing today?
Yep.
And when you know, the public doesn't know your problems generally, right? They only see the sort of shiny outline of it. And so when you carry that, like, you know what the issues are with the company, you know your people problems, this customer you're on the verge of losing. So it's like hard to feel like I'm just like so successful, because there's always stuff going wrong. Like there's always problems, there's always things you have to fight through, and the next hurdle, and keeping up with the market and all of that. So it's, for me, I always say only the paranoid survive, which is probably a good thing for entrepreneurs. But yeah, maybe some can, but for me, I'm right there with you. I don't know until I maybe sell this business for some odd amount of millions that I could ever kick my feet up and say, like, you know, we did it.
I mean, you're like, yeah, a private jet and a Ferrari is great, but the process of doing it and the struggles you go through is what makes it worth it.
Yeah, and that's the joy in it, just being able to build. Like, I always say, it's my Instagram bio, I'm like, I love making stuff, whether it's photos, videos, businesses. I just love to create. And I think business is kind of the top echelon. It's like the hardest thing to create, and maybe like why I get the most joy from it.
Yeah, because it's the hardest.
Yeah.
Yep, the satisfaction is much harder when the climb's harder. So
yeah. So
well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate it.
No, this has been fun.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me in.